Caleb Giroux, there's no question about it that Tennessee should be commended for going to Hattiesburg, getting through the super regional, but it doesn't get any easier when you go to Omaha, especially with LSU and arguably the best player in the nation on the mound. Your thoughts on the matchup?
Yeah, Tennessee got a lot of people are talking about like if they should reseed when teams make it to Omaha, because Tennessee's side of the bracket is loaded. You've got Wake Forest, which is arguably the best team in the country, LSU, which is probably number 2 in the country, and then you've got Stanford, who defeated Texas and hosted their own regional and super regional, and then Tennessee on that side. And Tennessee gets to see the best pitcher in the country game 1. So the Vols only hit 205 in Hattiesburg against Southern Mississippi, and they're pitching. Obviously, yes, Tanner Hall is a good pitcher, and they put 4 on him. But besides that, Southern Miss really didn't have a lot of flashy names. So I really worry about them having to face Paul Skenes and seeing, triple digits all night with 3 pitches thrown for strikes. And he leads the nation in strikeouts, and he's chasing Ben McDonald's strikeout record for a reason. So I worry about Tennessee in that ballpark and facing Paul Skenes, but we'll see what happens on Saturday night.
There we go. And coverage of the College World Series is brought to you by Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Save you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. That's AndyMasonRealEstate.com. He's my realtor. Should be yours. Best prices and best service in the biz. It's just that easy. Calhoun?
Jaru, so who does this help? Because I know what you were talking about last week with Tennessee's offense, but obviously there were 2 rain delays because of just the disastrous weather. Well, I just pulled up the forecast in Omaha, and it looks like thunderstorms are in the forecast all afternoon tomorrow from like 1 to 11. So
that's fine, though, Calhoun, as long as they're not in Manchester, Tennessee for Bonnaroo on Sunday night, because we just bought the tickets. It can rain there, and we can postpone that thing, but the Foo Fighters aren't hanging out. Sorry, Calhoun, go ahead.
I'm not sure, Dave. I don't know if you know what you're getting into going to a music fest 3 days.
Yes,
this is.
I don't know either.
So, but Jaru, if weather is off and on, do you think that hurts Tennessee's offense or helps it?
In game 1, I'm not as sure it plays as big of a factor. So when you're facing LSU, their bullpen is not deep, but they have a couple pitchers who they can pull out in a rain delay. My worry is if you get into game 2 or 3, it'll probably help Tennessee more than hurt, just because of how many pitchers and arms they can throw out of a rain delay if the starter has to come out because of rain or anything like that. More so with Tennessee's offense is that ballpark does not play well for Tennessee's offense. They got some timely hits in Hattiesburg, timely hits in Clemson. Like Zane Denton's home run to keep the Vols alive in Clemson was a wall scraper, really. And if you look at Charles Schwab Field, that ball is probably caught not even on the warning track. And the ball does not fly in Omaha at all. So I worry that if they try to rely on the home run ball like they have in the past, that it might not play well for them. But as for rain, I really think until you get to game 2 or 3, it doesn't matter, because most teams, and I assume LSU and Tennessee included, are going to throw their best arms night 1 and try to stay in the winner's bracket.
So given that fact, it's going to come down to Tennessee's pitching then, right? So how does Tennessee's pitching, how can they hold up against LSU's lineup?
Andrew Lindsey got hit around by Southern Miss, but before that, he looked really, really good. And that's who I assume will pitch Friday night. And then obviously you have Chase Burns coming out of the bullpen in a closer role. He was throwing 102, 101 against Southern Miss with a slider that was moving 2 feet off the plate. So, I mean, their pitching is there. Just LSU has proven that they can hit good pitching. I mean, their lineup's hitting over 300. They have one of the top leaders in the country in RBIs. You have Dylan Cruz, who will probably win the Golden Spikes and be a top 5 draft pick. So not only will Tennessee have to put up with a lineup that consistently puts up 6, 7, 8 runs a game, you also have to face the best pitcher on the mound. And that's really why LSU has gotten to the point they're at this season, and why they took 2 of 3 from LSU earlier, or took 2 of 3, from Tennessee earlier in the year.
So if there were 2 or 3 Tennessee position players that you would point at that need to have a big game against LSU, because you're right, you stay in that winner's bracket, it changes everything basically. So there are three guys that are position players, not pitchers, that need to have a good showing Saturday night. Who would that be?
Well, I think the bottom of the lineup has to produce at some point. So Cal Stark is obviously probably going to end up in the 9-hole again, your catcher. Getting his bat hot in Omaha would be huge to roll over that lineup, because in Hattiesburg it felt like that the 7, 8, 9 spots, or really just the 8, 9 spots, are kind of dead. And then you get stuck not being able to roll over the lineup, and you have to lead off 9-1-2 instead of 1-2-3, and just that whole deal. So I feel like the bottom of the lineup has to produce. And you also look at a guy like Blake Burke, where you know the production is there. And he had a good weekend in the Super Regionals, but he's kind of slowed down in the second half of the season. So if he can play to his potential, I think Tennessee will be in a really good spot. And then you just look at a guy like Jared Dickey, who's been consistent, and just as long as he doesn't fall off and he keeps hitting at a high clip and keeps producing at the plate, then I feel like the Vols could have some success.
Guys, y'all call me the LSU homer, but who's the bigger LSU homer, me or Jaru? Because it sounds like he's picking LSU to win this.
It does sound like you're picking LSU to win this, but I can't go against that when you have Golden Spike's potential winner, and I mean they're LSU's really good.
That's what I mean. I don't think anybody can beat Paul Skenes right now, unless it rains in the third inning and Paul Skenes can't come back. I think Tennessee or LSU, has a pretty good shot to win this first game. Now, if the two match up in the losers bracket in a couple days and LSU is rolling out a bullpen game, then I'd probably pick Tennessee. But I don't think anybody can pick against Paul Skenes at this point.
No, that's fair. Go ahead and click that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, do that. Turn your notifications on. Let's grow this thing today, because you should be excited. The College World Series. People have asked me for years, what kind of sports do you like? I like the sports where people go home crying, or they go home with just incredible joy. And the College World Series is that. So I get excited for events like that. I think you can probably hear it my voice. Caleb, is this team, I know last year's Vols didn't make it to the College World Series, but is this team better suited from a mentality standpoint? Because they're not as cocky. They're not as vociferous in their confidence. Are they better suited to go to Omaha and have success than last year's group had they made it?
I think more so they just don't have as big of a target on their back. There was no expectations for this team because you lost 8 defensive starters. So everything they've done from this point, and you've heard some of the players talk about it too, they're playing with nothing to lose. You go to Clemson as the 2 seed and their regional, beat them. You go to Southern Miss. Everybody isn't picking you to win. So it's really, there's no target on Tennessee's back, and you're playing with nothing to lose. And any team with nothing to lose is very, very dangerous at this point in the season, especially in baseball.
You know, you've been around this program a lot. You've covered them throughout this season. And I don't want to read too much into a couple of quotes, but I've read a couple of quotes that kind of speak to quiet confidence, which is the exact opposite of last year. Do you feel that kind of being around this team?
Yeah, and I think it's more so just the personalities on the team. Last year you had a lot of guys like a Drew Gilbert who like to show a lot of emotion and stuff on the field, and you still have that this year with Christian Moore. But I would say he's probably the only one that really is as outspoken and emotional compared to last year's team. I mean, you look at a guy like Zane Denton, and yeah, he'll bat flip every once in a while, but it's nothing like we saw last year where they're walking, 45 feet down the line, and you think of like a Griffin Merritt compared to anybody else from last year's team, like a Trey Lipscomb who led last year's team. And it's just, I feel like it's more personalities, and then it's kind of contributed to a quiet confidence with this team versus last year's personalities contributed to a loud, outspoken, bat flipping team. And really, I mean, this team is second in program history in home runs. So it's not like it's not like they're not hitting the home runs. They're still hitting them. It's just the personalities on this team don't bode as much for the outspoken and loud and everything we saw last year.
It is funny to think about. We're talking about Tennessee eking into the College World Series as almost an off year. I mean, it's not an off year. It's a sign of where the program has gotten to. All right, I want to get to the official visitors, but first, real quick, and fill this out on the message board. I want to hear your thoughts. They're going to build that Neyland Thompson Bowling fan experience thing between Neyland Stadium and Thompson Bowling Arena. I've been told that means more potential arena shows in Neyland Stadium, besides Kenny Chesney. Lord, nobody needs to see that again. But as far as one act you would like to see in Neyland Stadium, the correct answer is Metallica. But after that, who would it be? And I want to hear the message board, but first the Caleb's before we get to the official visitors.
You go first, Calhoun.
Since I was born,
if somebody says Kendrick Lamar, I'm going to get physically ill.
Kendrick Lamar is amazing. I saw him at Firefly a few years ago. He's an amazing performer.
Give me your big.
But I had already said Taylor Swift, so you know.
Okay, I'll give you some love on Taylor Swift. Not my style of music. What about you, Drew?
I don't know. I really don't. I mean, the first thing that popped in my head was the Red Hot Chili Peppers because they only went to like the Braves Stadium and stuff like that. So I guess they could do Thompson Bowling.
They're in Chicago for Lala. You want to roll?
Not to Chicago.
All right, we've got Bing Crosby, Lil Wayne. That's what Butch Jones said.
Wow.
And Nickelback on
yes!
our message board.
Love Nickelback.
Nickelback is absolutely the worst band in the history of man.
You know what? The more people hate Nickelback, the more I love them. I just feed off the hatred of Nickelback, and I just love them.
Right, you're like the Miami Hurricanes of the 1980s, is what you are. There's a 30
Nickelback and Avril Lavigne. I would see them in concert tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.